Welcome everyone to another episode of TLN Live. We're gonna be talking top transfers. Once you get in the comments here, I see some are already here. Shout us out. Let us know where you're watching from. Hoagie, what's going on, man?
What's going on? Let's go. Good to be back on the cam here. We're 73 days from college lacrosse kicking off. Johns Hopkins, I think, plays Robert Morris. We got Bellarmine, Mercer. So, guys, we're approaching college lacrosse season. It's back. I saw Champ Series was just announced today too. So we're closer to lacrosse than we think.
It
so
does
we're getting
feel
there.
it's starting to feel real for sure. And NLL season starting next week too. So I'm really excited about that. I just want to shout out some of the people in the comments section: Amelia, Jules, Lando, Hogan, another Hogan. How about that?
Wow.
Christian, I see all you guys. They want us to hit the frog. Anyway, keep dropping in your comments. Let us know what transfers you want us to talk to. But we're going to kick things off with Hoagies. As you can see, we got a top 5 ready here. And Hoagie, without further ado, why don't we just dive right in? We kept them waiting long enough. Tell us who your number 5 is in terms of impact transfers heading into the 2026 college lacrosse season.
Yeah, so there's a ton of impact transfers coming in this year, and there's going to be a ton of guys that aren't on this list today and not even on some honorable mention lists that are going to be high impact players for a lot of teams, right? We've known now that the transfer portal every year, it seems like there's always some hidden gems, kids who maybe were overlooked in high school, so on and so forth, and they, play well at a school and are able to move up and then become stars. So, but at number 5, I'm going to go with someone who kind of is unproven. We don't know what we're getting yet, but I'm going to go with 𝐓𝐇𝐄 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐒. Transferring from Virginia over to Duke. He's probably one of the biggest transfer portal kids this whole class in terms of like guys that like you're going to have now for the rest of, you got him for 4 years, right? He was a freshman last year, missed all of last year with an ACL, hasn't played, but was a very highly touted recruit coming out of high school. We obviously know about his family ties with his brothers, and his youngest brother just committed to North Carolina, I believe, in this latest cycle. His dad's obviously the head coach of the Carolina Chaos. So look, the 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐄 family, big in lacrosse. To me, this is a top 10 kid in the recruiting cycle who has a lot of potential. Duke actually has the number 1 incoming freshman class in the country for the current freshmen. So, if you count the red shirt, he's going to be a part of that class and only bolster and boost that even more. Guy who projects as a midfielder, at least at first for sure. Maybe can play some attack at his older years, but for me, this is just an upside pick. This is a good ad for Coach Stanowski to get another playmaker down at Duke. I feel like they're never really low on talent. They're always very high on talent, and they add another talented player. So
yeah, Hoagie, honestly, I think it's a little bold going with one of your top 5, a guy we haven't even seen on the college level yet. Obviously, very highly rated recruit, comes from pedigree, great bloodline. But I'm curious, are we sounding the alarm, the panic alarm at UVA just yet? Because 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐄 transfers out. Older brother Ryan still there. Youngest brother Chris 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐄 picks UNC. Ethan Bramoff flipped to Maryland. Tuck Gilbane flipped to Princeton. Is something going on in Charlottesville, you think?
I don't know. I mean, to me, they got championship weekend hosting this year, so I feel like that's a big motivator in the locker room for those guys. I know they just got that brand new facility as well. Look, I feel like it's the ACC kind of goes in waves where, you go at the top for a little bit and then you come down and someone else elevates and then vice versa. I think Virginia's been at the mountaintop of that conference for the last 5-6 years. And then, you had Syracuse at the basement of it, and now they're kind of catapulting to the top. Same with Carolina at the basement of the ACC. Now they're catapulting, it looks like, more towards the top. So there's always shuffling. There's always moving. I mean, if it's Virginia, I'm not sounding the panic alarm yet. They had one bad year last year. If they're bad again this year, then that's when we start asking questions if they have another losing record. And then we're asking the question, are they back to that stretch? I think it was it the end of the Stars era where they didn't win an ACC game for 3 or 4 years, Kev, I want to say?
Yeah, well, look, I'm not sounding the alarm just yet. We're talking about UVA here. They're still stacked with talent. That's probably part of the reason why 𝐓𝐇𝐄 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐄 might be leaving, because there was an article just this week. Lars Tiffany was talking about it in USA Lacrosse magazine saying this kind of feels like the 2021 team in terms of offensive talent. Because you got Brendan Millen now with McCabe Millen, Truett Sunderland back, Ryan 𝐋𝐂𝐑𝐄 back. So one of those guys is going to have to play midfield. I don't know who it is.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing too. We'll get on when we announce some of the later transfers on this list as well. Is it's great to have all this talent, but when you add a guy who's been a primary attackman and then now, hey, you got to play midi on this team or vice versa, it can create some issues. So, that's a big question mark for a lot of these coaches when they're bringing in transfers and they're bringing in talented players is, maybe whoever you're bringing in is better than one of your starting attackmen, but just because he's better one-on-one as a player doesn't mean he's going to be better fitting into that offense as a piece, right? There's guys who fit certain offenses. I think guys like Jake Taylor, guys like that who are just elite at what they do that, yeah, is there some better players out there maybe than Jake Taylor at attack? Sure, but there's no one who could do what he can do in terms of inside finishing, off-ball play, all that kind of stuff, right? So just because the talent's there in the portal doesn't mean it's going to fit and mesh with your team. And that's kind of the challenge that a lot of these coaches, I think, have either learned the hard way or had to deal with over these last years when the portal's been really prevalent.
I see a commenter right now saying T-Brag9 said Brian Tevlin, one of the top 5 transfers maybe all time. We're talking about transfers this year, but I think it's a good segue into number 4.
Yeah, and at number 4, I got the duo that we've been knowing now for over a year now, Chris Lyons and Leo Johnson, going from Yale to Maryland. I feel like this has been the transfer that everyone was kind of waiting for to add to this Maryland team, right? They obviously have been a team who's been to the championship game the last 2 years, and they returned a ton of talent this year. Eric Spanos, Braden Erksa, tons of great players on this team returning to this Maryland team. They're my preseason number 1 team in 2026. And, the expectations at Maryland every year is to win the national championship. So this year is no other there. Look, these are 2 stud players, right? Like, when I think of these 2 guys from 2 years ago on that Yale team, they were putting up crazy numbers. Chris Lyons, especially, like, you got Johnson. He's kind of that lefty guy. He's great at facilitating the ball, moving the ball, feeding, stuff like that. And then Lyons is kind of that big, taller, 6'1" type-ish righty player. So, yeah, the question to me is where do these guys fit? Kind of like I just said, and who plays where, right? Like, are you gonna? You got 4 attackmen here, only 3 can play attack. So one of these guys is gonna be forced to play midi when you count Erksa, Spanos, Lyons, and Johnson. One of them's gonna have to play midfield. So that's the question. How does Coach Tillman, mix that around, and who does he decide to play where? That's gonna be the question that I'm waiting to see once we kind of see them out in the field this spring. But I mean, if there's a coach that I trust to make the right moves, it's John Tillman, and he wouldn't bring these guys in unless he thought it was going to better the team. So, yeah, these are 2 high impact guys when healthy. I think that's going to be the story here. A lot of these guys have had injuries and have potential. So, this is a situation where these guys couldn't return to Yale due to the eligibility rules with grad transfers. So, they had no choice but to enter the portal, which is always weird. I was thinking last year, like, you're playing on Yale all year, but like they know you're going somewhere else next year, right?
Yeah. But it's not, yeah. And John Tillman has done work in the portal every year. If you look at last year, 2 big players he got, Matthew Keegan and Bryce Ford from Binghamton and Fairfield, respectively. But to me, they were like role players. Do you see these 2 guys as role players for Maryland, or do they have like superstar potential in your eyes?
I think they have superstar potential to me because if you're looking at what they've done in the past at Yale, they've been superstar level players. This reminds me a lot of, John Tillman has brought in a ton of transfers, right, the last couple of years, and maybe more of secondary players, but obviously this reminds me of that 2022 Maryland team when he brought in Keegan Kahn and Jonathan Donville. Those guys were 2 high impact transfers for Maryland that year. Look, Logan Wisnauskas won the Tewaaraton that year. That team had loaded players all over the field, but to me, I don't know if that team wins the national championship or is as electric offensively without Keegan Kahn. Keegan Kahn was one of the most underrated, if not the most underrated piece of that Maryland offense in 2022. Absolute stud who was very trusted to make big plays at big moments for that Maryland team. So, yeah, look, I see these 2 as more of an impact transfer guys rather than role players, and kind of given that same effect that a Donville and a Keegan Kahn gave back in 2022. It'll be interesting, like I said, to see which one of these guys or who gets moved to midfield. Obviously, Spanos is going to play attack, so that's a lock there. What do you do with Erksa? What do you do with the other 2 of these guys? But no, if you're asking me if these guys are going to be more secondary role players or stars, I think these guys are going to be stars.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting thing because I feel like Leo Johnson's going to have a bigger impact than Chris Lyons, even though I think Chris Lyons is probably the better player. I mean, this is a guy who in 2023, before his injury, had 62 goals, but he's more of a goal scorer. Leo Johnson, a little bit more of a facilitator. He had 20 assists for Yale last year. That would have led Maryland. They didn't have any guys with 20 assists last year. So
yeah,
I see Leo Johnson fitting in nicely and facilitating well for that offense, whereas Chris Lyons is going to have to fight for all those goals. So that's my take on those 2. I don't know if you agreed, whether you think one of the 2 will be more impactful.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you were going to ask me, I probably would have said Leo Johnson just because of his ability to feed and his facilitating that he does, comparable to Lyons. But like you said, I mean, Lyons is a stud, fellow Jersey cat as well.
South
Shawnee
Jersey
product. So Shawnee product. Yeah. So So yeah, always got to root for the Jersey guys. But yeah, I'm excited to see this Maryland team this year. I think, like I've been on record saying this a bunch. I felt like, the last 2 years they were good enough to win a national championship, but maybe it wasn't like full go, right? Like this year's team to me is like full go national championship, like has the tools to get it done. The question mark's always going to be in net, right? With a new starter after McNaney leaves, and
Yeah, but they got good options.
they got
Brian
great
Rupel,
options.
who's done it,
And
and Seibel, who's a great impact rookie
high end
or
recruit,
freshman coming
yeah.
in.
So both going to be great, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm excited to see these guys just because I feel like this transfer everyone's known about for so long. We've been like waiting for it to happen. So now these guys are finally in College Park and get to put on the Terps uniform.
Yeah. This is we always talk about Maryland as a team. It's like, oh, they're better than the sum of their parts. Well, their parts are pretty dang good this year, and I think if you ask me, they're the favorite to win it all this year. But let's move on to number 3, and I know we're going to talk for a bit about this one because it's big.
Yeah, number 3, we're going to have the news that just broke on Monday night. May or may not have been me and Mitchell Pelkey breaking that news live for the fellas. You got to hook up the Buckeyes, breaking that news, massive news in the transfer portal cycle. Pelks and I breaking that news firsthand. But it's Russell Melendez from Johns Hopkins to Ohio State. This is a massive recruit on so many levels, right? This is, for Ohio State purposes, huge. And, I think for Russell Melendez, this is a great opportunity for him as well. Look, people have a lot of opinions on a lot of different guys, but look, to me, like people are like, he's playing for 6 years, blah, blah. In my opinion, I think you should play as long as you get eligibility for. I don't know why you wouldn't play. It makes no sense when I see people being like, he's a 6-year. Why is he playing? It's like, if you had eligibility, you wouldn't be playing. Come on,
I texted that to you the other day. Everyone who's upset about it would be playing as long as the NCAA would let them.
Yeah. So look, like, everyone in the comments who's commenting that too knows they do the exact same boat. So, but look, this is one of the biggest transfers in this cycle. I think, honestly, it's probably the biggest midseason transfer since like TD Ierlan went to Denver a couple years back, right? You usually don't.
I mean, that was literally midseason.
Literally, actually, even later than this.
Yeah.
But, it's definitely interesting because if you're Melendez's, you apply for the waiver. We don't know too many details beyond that, but it seems like if he was granted it, he wasn't able to go back to Hopkins. I don't know if that was a school thing, if that was a Milliman thing, but it seemed like Hopkins was off the table, whether he got the extra year back. I don't know what happened, but that seemed like what it was. So if you're Melendez, you're kind of just sitting around right now like, do I get a job? Do I not? I want to play. Am I going to get it? Am I not? You don't know. You're in the waiting game. You get that waiver approved, I believe, like a week ago or so. You get a bunch of schools obviously reach out to you right away, take a visit to Ohio State, ended up committing to Ohio State. And look, I think this is a great fit for him, right? He was a former All Big Ten player, an honorable mention All-American, very key piece to that Hopkins team for those 2 quarterfinal runs the last couple of years. And, the way I look at this is Ohio State, in my opinion, is going to have the number 1 defense in the country into 2026. You got Big Tasty, who's a first-team All-American, Cullen Brown, Bobby Van Buren, Kyle Foster down low, anchoring that defense that was great last year. So the defense was never going to be the problem. To me, the issue with Ohio State looking into this year was they lost a ton of guys on offense, and there was a ton of inexperience there. You didn't know if you were getting Alex Marnier back, and originally he wasn't coming back. He decides late summer, you know what? I have the extra year. Why am I not taking it? Alex Marnier, who was your leader on offense last year, first-team All Big Ten player, 50 goals last year performer, he decides, you know what, I'm coming back. So you bring him back. That's a huge pillar. Garrett Haas, who's an upperclassman now, he's kind of been that ex-attackman quarterback type role for the Ohio State offense, played for 2 years. He's now in his upperclassman role. So you have hit them 2. And then now you add Russell Melendez, who's a proven player. I think this is a home run hit for the Buckeyes. I love this ad by Coach Myers. If I'm going to say one knock or one question on this move, it's always tough bringing a transfer in midseason, right? He doesn't really know anyone. You got guys fighting for spots all fall who maybe thought that they were going to get that 3rd spot. It might rub some guys the wrong way when you think you might start or get playing time. And then all of a sudden it's like, bang, some guy just shows up and he's taking your spot right at the end of fall ball. But hey, that's how.
Well, not only that, if you look at like the personnel, like Marinier's got that righty shooter spot. Like no one's taking that from him.
No,
but if you look at Garrett Haas, I mean, he's a 2-handed attackman, but I think he's a lefty.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So Melendez is a righty. Is he going to come in and take Garrett Haas's spot at X and Haas is going to have to bump over? Like, is that what's going to happen?
And that's going to be the interesting point, and that's going to be something with that Coach Myers is going to have to figure out and fit. I think with Coach Myers, saw Melendez in the portal, this was more of an opportunity for him to be like, all right, I can add a great player to my offense. I'll figure it out afterwards. Not, really thinking right away, like, does he fit? Does he not? To me, it's like, hey, we need star power on offense. Like, this guy's a guy who can make an impact. We've seen what he's done. Let's bring him in here and we'll figure it out. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting. Like you said, Kev, I know that Garrett Haas means a lot to that team. I know he's a great leader in that locker room. I know Coach Myers trusts him. So he's going to be a guy that kind of has full keys to that offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they make Russ maybe shift over and figure it out. I'm not sure. Or they shift somehow their offensive philosophy. That's going to be up to offensive coordinator Coach 𝐓𝐄, Coach Myers to figure out. But to me, this is more of just adding a proven stud player. And, it's going to be interesting. When you transfer in conference, you got to play your old school. So we'll see how that goes against Hopkins. I saw, Kev, you posted when he committed, the clip of him scoring that like BTB crazy goal against Ohio State. That was our senior year. I remember he was scoring goals left and right. I think he made the band ring like 5 or 6 times that day. So I'll never forget that. But now he's on our side. So.
Well, I would make him, have to earn his way into the attack lineup. I'd run him through the midfield box, and if it's undeniable, then you put him at attack. But if he does end up on the attack line, we need a fact check. This might be the oldest attack line in the history of college lacrosse. Alex Marnier and Garrett Haas were both class of 2021 high school graduates. Melendez graduated in the class of 2020. We also had Matt Rambo in the comments here said Big Ten to Big Ten is wild. And that's kind of true. You don't really see a lot of transfers like that, at least not of Russell Melendez's caliber.
No, you don't. I think there's a transfer too from Maryland. Talking about Rambo, they're going to Michigan, I believe too. I forget what his name is, but I believe there's another interconference transfer. Yeah, it is interesting to see, and I always you don't know how it all goes down behind the scenes. Like, was it a bad blood situation?
I wonder.
Was it not?
Yeah,
you wonder, because if it's bad blood, look, like I don't mind it as much. If Hopkins,
we got to find out what the deal was at Hopkins. Like, was it like, hey, we can't keep you here, or?
Yeah, because to me, if it's like Hopkins, like, yeah, well, you know what, we're just going to move on from you, then it's kind of like, all right, I don't care. I'm going to go.
Then that game's interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting no matter what. But
if it was one of those things where he was like, it didn't seem like he was like, I want to leave my own. So it seems like it was either like Hopkins was like, we're good, sorry, just like we're going to use the roster spot elsewhere, or an academic issue potentially of like, hey, can't work out here somehow. I don't know how it all goes down, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how that all unfolds. But
yeah. Melendez, one of the most polarizing players, let alone transfers, just this year. So we're super excited to watch him and follow him and see what happens with him this year. But let's move on to number 2. It's another joint transfer.
Yep.
Hit me.
At number 2, I'm going with Liam and Rory Connor going from Colgate to Georgetown. This was probably this might have been the highest end in terms of like most publicity transfer, I think, in the portal, like the most buzz everyone was talking about when it kind of.
People love brothers.
Yeah, people love brothers. Look, you get Liam, who's a junior, so you got at least 2 more years out of him. Rory, you get as a graduate. So you're getting 2 for 1, and you're getting some for more than others. Chris Lyons-Johnson, just one ride with those boys. This, you got a couple guys. But look, obviously those guys the brothers were studs at Colgate, brought them to a Patriot League championship, which was awesome to see. And you know what? Now they're going to go to Georgetown, who's looking to fill some pretty big losses, right? They lose Aiden Carroll, they lose Fulton Baymans, but at the same time, Georgetown's bringing back 3 of their top 5 scorers last year, if you minus those other 2. So you think you bring these guys back in the fold, and I've been saying this last time we went live, Kev. I think this is Georgetown's best chance at getting a championship weekend in a while. I think this is their real go at it. The last couple of years, quarterfinal round might have been their ceiling. This is a go year for them. This is a Kevin Warren. You got a goalie who's been a multi-year starter. You got a great young faceoff guy. You got Ty Banks, who's one of the best defenders in the country, right? So you got key pieces all over the place. You've been there, done that. You have experience. 7 straight Big East championships. I think it's 4 straight quarters now. It's like, all right, eventually something's got to give, and you kind of got to break through. And this is the team, I think, that has a chance to do it. This is giving me Penn State vibes, where it's like, if they don't break through this year, people are going to start saying, like, can they ever break through, right? Like,
right. So that was going to be my question for you, because when we're talking about impact transfers, okay, what's the impact? This is a team that wins their conference every year. They're basically automatic to make the quarterfinals, but they haven't been to the championship weekend since 1999. And so I look at what they lost: Aiden Carroll, a really good PLL pro, and Fulton Bayman. That's 140 points between those two. The Connor brothers at Colgate last year had 172 combined points. So is that going to be enough? Like, what you get from Rory and Liam Connor, is that going to be enough to get you over the hump and get to championship weekend. The expectation, the pressure should be on Georgetown more so than ever before.
And that's what Kevin Warren was hoping when he brought those guys in, right? This kind of reminds me of an all-in year. It's like, all right, who can we bring in to take this thing from where it is to the next level, right? And two studs like this definitely can make the difference, right? You lose those two guys that I mentioned, and you mentioned, Kev, with Carroll and Bayman, but you bring in guys who I think are just as talented, if not could be more talented in the future. We'll see how that kind of unfolds. But yeah, I'm really high on Georgetown this year. They're kind of one of my teams that I don't know if people didn't take them seriously, because that sounds disrespectful and rude, but like I feel like a lot of people, were like, yeah, Georgetown's great, but they're not in that, top ACC, top end of the Big Ten level, top Ivy level, which to me this year, I think they are. And I think they have that opportunity to really go win a national championship. You don't have teams every year that can go win a natty. You have teams whose ceiling is NCAA tournament quarterfinal. This is a national championship level team, and I'm excited to see how Kevin Warren handles it.
A few things I want to point out because I think it's important. But first, I got to shout out a commenter, Brian Nozelax, our boy, says that the Connor brothers are filthy, or I forget, something along those lines. But I agree. They're highlight reel players. But I want to clarify and say, just because these two guys came in this year, I don't think it's this year or bust for Georgetown, because people are going to get confused. Okay, these guys transfer together. Are they twins? They're not twins. Liam Connor is only a junior, and Rory Connor is a grad student. So this is it for Rory, but Liam's going to be here for a couple of years. And they're different athletes too. When you see them on the field, you're going to they look different. Rory is more as an attackman. He's shorter, stockier. Liam Connor is like a 6'4" midfielder, probably the more athletic of the two. And when you look at, you mentioned Ty Banks, you mentioned Anderson Moore, those guys both are juniors. So their core might really actually be a year away. So yes, I do think they have the potential to make a leap this year by adding these two guys. But it really actually might be, who do they add next year to that main core to potentially go to championship weekend or beyond. But I think the expectation this year is championship weekend.
Yeah, and they're both obviously great, both of the brothers, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Liam was the higher of the recruiter, higher coveted in the portal in terms of rankings. Obviously, it's like 1A, 1B. They're both studs, but, you got Liam back after this year as well, which is huge. And like you said, tons of great underclassmen behind them. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Kevin Warren's built an empire there at Georgetown in the Big East, and now the next step is like breaking through to championship weekend and finally getting there. We've had a lot of teams do that recently. Princeton did that back in 2021 for the first time in years. Denver went on a little bit of a drought, not as long of a drought, but a decent drought to finally break through. So we'll see. The next team to break through to is Hopkins too. Hopkins hasn't been there since 2015, yep. So they got to get to championship. Syracuse broke that glass ceiling last year and finally got back. So tons of great historic programs. So we'll see.
I see my man Tucker Strings in the comments. He wants to join the live. I can't add you now, but let's set something up in the future. I don't know how your fingers got to be so tired from all that stringing. How can you type these comments? But anyway, before we reveal, I want you guys to guess in the comment section right now who the number one transfer will be on Hoagie's top 5. If you're a fan of Hoagie and you tuned into these lives, you might already know. So I want to see if anyone can guess it. But first, if you notice this hat I'm wearing, check out this hat. Hoagie, you didn't even say anything about it.
I saw that. That thing's elite, coming out Friday, I believe.
This isn't even out yet. This isn't even out yet.
Look at that. The real tree.
Real tree camo.
Swaggy.
Alex Poole special. Man, when he puts his mind to it, he's like, yeah, we're gonna sell out a hat here. And he's like, we're doing a camo one for the fall. This is honestly one of my favorite hats that we've dropped. It's coming out Friday. Check it out. You won't miss it. We got a bunch of content coming out.
Limited run too, Kev, right?
Yep.
Limited run,
yeah.
So.
We have a very small amount of these available. So if you haven't set up for alerts, Alex,
we got AP in the comments now too. Great.
Alex, can you please do the Alex, can you please tell them what to text camo to? I forget the number. I apologize. He's going to be mad at me for that, but there's your plug.
Get your TLN camo hat Friday.
Look for Poolskis in the comments. He's going to tell you what to text the number 2 to get a sign up for the alerts. All right, back to the top 5 ranking. We got one left here. Lay it on me, Hoagie.
Here we go. The number 1 transfer in this cycle this year, the number 1 high impact transfer to me, drum roll please, is going to be Josh Yago from Air Force to Notre Dame. You guys know, Kev, we've talked about this in the past. To me, I said I think he's going to be the number one transfer in this entire cycle in terms of what he's going to mean to his team, his athletic ability. And Josh Yago, to me, if you don't know who he is now, you're going to know who he is by the time we get to May next year, because this kid's a stud. Look, I played Air Force the last 2 years of my college career, and I remember this kid as a young freshman, sophomore, when I was a senior playing, and he always kind of had that fast twitch to him as a player. Look, this guy is a former honorable mention All-American. He played at Air Force, so not many people saw him maybe on the national stage, right? He dealt with some injuries and stuff like that, but this is a kid who's got,
they made the tournament last year.
Made the tournament last year. Tons of explosiveness, tons of potential, was very highly coveted in the transfer portal. And to me, he's going to be the focal point, really the quarterback of this new look Notre Dame attack next year. Obviously, you're replacing Chris Kavanaugh, Jake Taylor, all those guys. The first time those guys, haven't been here.
Yeah, I want to press you on that actually, because people might not realize Notre Dame is turning over their entire starting attack of Chris Kavanaugh, Jake Taylor, and Devin McClain. And we've had plenty of conversations about quarterbacking at attack. But do you really think that Josh Yago can step in day one and be the quarterback of this offense at attack?
I do. I think he's got that talent to really be at that level. This is a guy who has a ton of experience playing too. And, the thing not many people realize, right? Like, just because you're at a bigger school, it doesn't mean, that the talent's different, right? You might be a higher end recruit, but, you don't play for 3 years. Whereas there's kids at lower level schools who have 3-4 years under their belt of starting game experience. That stuff matters. Josh Yago has had a ton of games under his belt. He's not going to be scared. He's not going to be shocked. He actually knows a lot of these Notre Dame guys. Air Force scrimmages Notre Dame every single year in the spring. So he's familiar with kind of that style of offense, that team. Is that maybe why Coach Corrigan every year would look across the other sideline in the spring scrimmages and be like, all right, that kid's legit. But, obviously, you're not, your first time in years, you're not going to have a Kavanaugh on this team, which is crazy. And this is really the first year of the full turn the page at Notre Dame. No Kavanaugh brothers, no Liam Entenmann, no Jake Taylor, like all those key pieces of those national championship teams, Ben Ramsey, all those guys are pretty much gone now at this point. But look, they're going to have tons of great guys on offense. You got Ted.
Yeah, Teddy I was going to say, look
Teddy
at
Lally. Yeah.
Look at the midfielder. That was my problem with Notre Dame last year, is I felt like they were too midfield heavy. And it's going to be tough for them to overcome that again this year because the horses they got. Jordan Faison, Matt Jeffrey, Will Angrick, Will Harris, Jalen Seymour, Max Buzenkill, Fisher Finley. They're all back. So they're going to have the deepest offensive midfield again. But I don't think they can rely on that. They need that offense to hum, and it works best when you have a facilitator at attack. If you look at last year, Brady Picorni came in and was like supposed to be the star freshman and then kind of fizzled out. I don't think that's the end of Brady Picorni by any means. He should be under the magnifying glass, in fact. But Brock Behrman, same thing. He's back. Teddy Lally, you just mentioned him. Yeah, I think if Josh Yago is who you say he is, he's got to make those guys better.
100%. And even guys like Matt Jeffrey, who are going to come back from some injuries last year, who could have some promise as well. Look, yeah, Notre Dame, I think this team last year went through how many stretches last year of 20-plus minutes without scoring because at times their offense felt like they had no feeder. They had no one who could initiate. It felt to me like it was a lot of midfielders trying to beat their matchup one-on-one, and if they couldn't, they were stuck. That was kind of the offense, right? If Faison or Angrick could, get someone going down the alley or in between, that's kind of how they were scoring. If not, the offense would stifle and not score for tons of minutes, which is ultimately, I think, what led to them last year losing in the quarterfinal. We know they had that massive collapse, whatever you want to call it, or Penn State comeback, whichever way you want to call it, but same kind of vibe. Multiple droughts where the offense just couldn't get going. So that was really what held them back last year. That's going to be the key to this team offensively this year is if they can get someone who can initiate, create off the dodge, or create offense, and really avoid this team from being one-dimensional, which they were last year offensively. So in my opinion, I'm a big Josh Yago fan. I've been a big supporter of his for a while now from afar. So, yeah, he's my number one transfer heading into this year, and I'm excited to see him play. I think he's one of those guys, too, who's going to elevate his teammates at Notre Dame, but also even become a better player because of the talent that he's playing around now at Notre Dame. That high level of player around him is only going to elevate him even more as well. So.
Well, you put your word out there. I love that you got a take heading into the season. I'm going to be watching now because otherwise I'd be like, who's Josh Yago? Holy cow, he's killing it. But now I know going into the season, I got expectations too, thanks to you and everyone else that tuned in here. Before we go, any last comments? questions you want answered, you want us to shout out, drop it now, because Hoagie's gonna rattle off. I think you got some honorable mentions that
Yeah, I
didn't
got
make your
some
top five.
underrated names in the
All right,
portal
tell me what's
that
up.
I really like. Yeah. Yeah, so we got a bunch of underrated guys I think that can be big for a lot of teams. I've also heard from a lot of people around the block that, there's still some more transfers out there right now that, are waiting for eligibility or have eligibility who've
Really?
already graduated, who are, taking some visits somewhere else. A couple players I've heard from some Ivy League schools who are debating taking the job or coming back. So we'll see if there's still some more pillars to fall. But yeah, that was one little nugget I want to drop in there from just some things I've been hearing around the lacrosse world. But if we're gonna go on some underrated players, I got a couple. I think I got what do I got? 6 guys here. All right, I'm gonna go rattle them off quickly here. First guy I got is Dante Bowen going from Ohio State to Syracuse. To me, Syracuse, this is an all-in year for them. They're going all in. They only brought in one transfer in this class, which was Dante Bowen. So to me, that tells me Gary Gait feels confident in the group that he has. He feels like, the chemistry is great with his team. He doesn't need to bring anyone in to really mess it up. But, Dante Bowen, he's a Canadian, big Canadian, about 6'1", 210 pounds, played tons of box over the summer, played with Joey Spleen on those teams out in Canada. So, he's going to have great stick skills. He's going to be great on the ground. I played with him at Ohio State for a couple of years, and great player, great teammate. Got a great motor, and to me, that's a piece that Syracuse was missing last year. They were very thin, a short stick midi behind Carter Rice, so going to be a big jump up there to add a big body guy with experience in his 5th year at Dante Bowen there. Second guy, Jacob Cohen, transferring from Yale to Ohio State, a guy that not many people know about. And honestly, quite frankly, I didn't know too much about until recently, until he transferred to Ohio State. I've heard a ton of great things from the guys I've talked to at Ohio State. Like, he's going to be a very underrated breakout guy. He's going to be playing primarily LSM just with how stacked that defense is. But I've heard rave reviews out of Columbus that he's going to be a major difference maker on this team this year for the Buckeyes. So adding to that already stacked defense, Jacob Cohen. Next guy I got is Brendan Kelly, going from Boston to Rutgers. Obviously, he was at Penn State at first. You got Scott Bita coming back to Rutgers after his stint at Michigan, coming home to lead that offense. And to me, Rutgers was a team who was young last year. They gained a lot of valuable experience last year from having a ton of young guys and inexperienced guys getting a lot of burn last year.
Good defense, beat Maryland.
Good defense, beat Maryland. Carden Stoller, we obviously know about him. He's a stud. They got Connor Cardilla, who's one of the best players in the entire country, probably going to be a first-team All-American, was great for Team USA this summer. So Brendan Kelly was kind of didn't have as much of an impact last year, but was a big contributor for that BU team back in 2024. So he's kind of a piece to me as like a secondary guy who I could see really having a big impact. Next, I got Charlie Pope coming from Vermont over to North Carolina. Obviously had some injuries, but was the American East Offensive Player of the Year back in 2024. A guy that's just another key piece that you can add around, another toy to that offense, right? With Dom Petramala, Owen Duffy, all those guys. He's a primary midfielder, so he's probably going to come out of the box, but can play some attack if needed, or if there, is any type of injury. I know UNC's had some injury issues with guys over the years. So health-wise, if they have any problems, they can slide him down to attack. That's a great piece to add to that Carolina offense. Will Timinovich, transferring from Georgetown to Michigan. He's, a guy who's got a lot of games under his belt, an experienced defender. He brings a lot of experience to that Michigan team. I think he's going to be a great addition to that, Michigan Wolverine defense down there as an anchor down there. And, a guy who I don't think many people know about, but very solid player. My last guy is Mikey Alexander from Yale to Maryland. Another guy who I feel like flown under the radar. He's a 3.5-year starter at Yale before getting that injury. Maryland loses, a ton of experienced guys back there. You lose Jackson Canfield, you lose Colin Burley. So, for Tillman, it was big to bring in a guy who has a lot of playing experience that you trust back there with Will Schaller, who in my opinion is one of the best defenders in all of college lacrosse. So, yeah, you lose those two guys, but you bring in Mikey Alexander. I think he's going to be great anchoring down that Maryland defense with a ton of games under his belt, a ton of experience. So those are my top 5 transfers. And then a couple nuggets of other guys who, maybe not too many people know yet, but are going to be, whether you know them or not, they might not be the biggest names, but they're going to be huge to their team's success in 2026. So I'm excited to see.
Ask Hoagie. Hey, I text him, hey, Hoagie, can you give me top 5 transfers and we'll go live? He gives me 12. That's just Hoagie for you.
Yeah, I mean, you got the top guys that everyone knows about, right? Like, I assume a lot of people when they saw this are like, all right, Yaga's probably on there, the Lions probably on there, Connor Rose on there. Who are the other guys? Who are the underrated guys that not many people know about who are going to have high impacts, be top 5 scorers, top 5 players on their team? some of these guys will, especially those honorable mention guys. You never know who's going to show up.
You see Poolskis in the comments?
What do you say? Can I get a? Absolutely not, AP. We're about to whoop them next week. Take back that rivalry. The Buckeyes are coming in hot. Gonna beat the brakes off of that team up north next weekend in football. Just wait till the Buckeyes get loose. Julian Sain and those boys. So I'm ready to go. I'm chomping at the bit.
Luke in the comments is asking if we'll do a collab with the D3 pod. Hey, if you guys are out there, reach out.
Might have to
reach out.
Do a collab.
That would be fun.
Yeah,
that would be really fun.
That would be really fun. That would be really fun.
All right. I think that'll wrap it up for today with this episode. This was a lot of fun. Let us know what other live episodes you'd like us to do, what other things you'd like us to rank or count down as we get closer and closer. What'd you say, 73 days away?
73 days. Yeah, I actually looked up this morning. I was like, when is the first college lacrosse game? Because, it starts to feel like we're getting closer. They announced Champ Series today. We're almost turning the page on December at this point. Thanksgiving next week. And I saw for the first time in a couple of years, we got January lacrosse, January 31st, the official first Saturday of college lacrosse this year, which is awesome. So in a week or so, when it's December, we're officially a month away or so from college lacrosse returning back, and I can't wait. So,
all right, to wrap things up, hey, stay tuned Friday for the camo hats. Drop.
Get your camo
Make
hats.
sure you're up early and ready to get them. For James Hogan, I'm Kevin Boilard. Thank you all for tuning in. Keep it locked to TLN. Peace.